Hello, my friends. Today, let's start with the fact that the foreign ministers of Lithuania, Poland, and Ukraine made a joint statement regarding the drone strikes. The foreign ministers of the Lublin Triangle strongly condemned the intrusion of Russian drones into Polish territory and noted only a joint and coordinated response can guarantee the safety of the region's residents. But that's not the main point. If you thought there would be a powerful response against Russia, no. Poland decided instead to send soldiers to Ukraine for training, to learn how to shoot down Russian drones. This shows that NATO countries are afraid to strike back at Russia directly. And now, after training in Ukraine, Polish forces will simply shoot down Russian drones over their own territory. Friends, be sure to share your opinion on this in the comments. Meanwhile, Trump at first was very surprised by the drones in Poland and said a new war had begun. But today he has already changed his mind and said maybe it was just a mistake.
What's your reaction to Russian drone incursion into Poland?
So he said so it could have been a mistake. So overall, nothing really changes. But Ukraine, without waiting for help from NATO countries, is actively striking Russian territory. Late last night, there were new attacks on Smolensk.
Нас закроете хотя бы, там вдруг сейчас на Лукойл упадет.
Ну, сейчас спим.
Да, на Лукойл прямо.
Блять, только хотел снять видео. Где это пиздец происходит? Вон они, блядь, засранцы.
Now, let's move on to the frontline situation, starting with the Dobropilla direction. And here, shocking reports are coming in from Ukrainian soldiers. Messages have appeared online claiming that the armed forces of Ukraine cleared the villages of Shakhove and Volodymyrivka of Russians. Friends, I think you've been following my updates closely, and you probably remember that Volodymyrivka had already been cleared of Russians, with advances even made toward the Mayak area. But now, once again, reports are surfacing that the village has been liberated. Even more surprising, there are claims that Shakhove was cleared, yet it had never actually been under Russian control before. So it's hard to comment on these reports, but it seems that the situation here is developing in a very troubling way if the Russians had already entered Shakhove. Just days ago, we saw updates from the general staff that Russian forces had been trying to assault this settlement and were breaking through across the fields. At the same time, today the Russians are actively pushing toward the village of Zoloty Kolodys, trying to regain lost positions. They are also storming Vilna and Nove Shakhove. However, so far there have been no major changes along the front line over the past day. In the Pokrovske direction, the Russians are assaulting Rodinske, advancing in the area of Razine toward Novoekonomichne, and trying to retake lost positions there where Ukrainian forces had attempted to cut off the Dobropilla direction. And the Russians are also storming Novoekonomichne. Heavy fighting continues for Myrolubivka, and they are assaulting Promень and Lysivka while breaking through near the areas of Zvirove, Kotlane, and Udachne. Over the past day, there have been no changes, but activity remains very high. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are storming Dachne and Filia, breaking through on the outskirts of Ivanivka, assaulting Alexandrograd and pushing near the villages of Tolstoy and Pidubne. However, so far there have been no new changes here. In the direction of Pokrovske, the Russians managed to advance toward their village of Ternove by 1.5 kilometers, toward Novomykolaivka by 1 kilometer 600 meters, and toward Novoivanivka by 2 kilometers and 200 meters. This means the situation here continues to worsen. Not long ago, there was already a major breakthrough recorded in this area, and today the Russians are once again advancing. On top of that, the loss of the village of Sosnivka hasn't yet been officially confirmed. Russian sources claim they have captured the settlement, and Ukrainian fighters also confirmed they had to withdraw from Sosnivka. So now we are waiting for official statements regarding this village. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians also achieved gains. They advanced 2 kilometers 200 meters in the area of Olhivske, coming very close to the village itself. They also pushed forward 1 kilometer in Malinivka. This means that even here the situation has somewhat worsened. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the situation has also started to change, and the Russians managed to expand their control around Kamensk across the fields by 5 kilometers and 200 meters. This breakthrough is very significant. In this way, they are creating a strong bridgehead for a possible future encirclement of Stepnohirsk. If they cannot capture the village directly, they may attempt to surround it. At the same time, assaults continue in the area of Plavny. They are pushing to the outskirts of Stepnohirsk, and they are storming Belohirya. For now, we are waiting to see how events develop further, but these advances clearly show that the situation here is deteriorating. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are pushing near the Antonivsky bridge, but so far they haven't achieved major success as all attacks are being repelled. Meanwhile, shelling of the right bank continues at maximum intensity. And now let's move on to the Kostantinivka direction. Here, the Russians are storming the villages of Maiske, Stupochki, and Alexandro Shultine. They are also breaking through in the area of Bila Hora, storming Pleshiyivka, Klebanbyk, and Berestok, and advancing toward Ilyinka across the fields. Heavy fighting also continues in the area of Rusenyar and Poltavka. The situation here is very difficult, although so far there have been no major changes along the front line. In the Siversk direction, the Russians have slightly reduced the activity for now, storming Dronivka and pushing forward in the area of Vyemka. Over the past day, the front line has remained unchanged, but this doesn't mean the Russians will stop here. Most likely, this is only a small regrouping, and they will soon resume attempts to break through towards Siversk. In the Liman direction, the Russians are storming Zarychne, advancing in the area of Kolodezi, storming Stavky, Shandrigolove and Seredny, and pushing toward Olhivka. The situation here is extremely difficult, and as before, the Russians are carrying out more than 20 assaults per day, and gradually they're managing to make some advances. For now, the situation in Zarychne remains unclear. The Russians claim that most of the village is under their control, but there is no confirmation from the Ukrainian side yet, so we're waiting. In the Borova direction, the Russians are storming Borivska-Andreevka, but over the past day no changes have occurred and all attacks have been successfully repelled. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are trying to break through to Myrne and are assaulting the outskirts of the city, but so far they haven't made any advances and Ukrainian forces continue to hold the line. In the Veliki Burluk direction, the situation is difficult. And the Russians have begun actively pushing in the border area to create a buffer zone. Attacks are ongoing in the Dvorichanske area and they are storming Odradne and Ambarne. So far, over the past day, there have been no changes, but the fighting continues. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians haven't launched any new assaults, and the situation remains unchanged for now. In Vovchansk, fighting continues, but Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks, and the situation is stable. In the Sumy direction, the Russians are trying to break through in the areas of Kindrativka and Oleksiivka. However, they have had no success, and the front line has remained unchanged over the past day. The struggle continues over positions. Meanwhile, Lavrov claimed that the US has taken Russia's side.
We particularly note that in the United States there is an increasing understanding of the need not to push Ukraine against Russia, not to arm Ukraine just to throw another group of Ukrainian citizens into this fire, but to address the root causes of the crisis. And I repeat, we will develop dialogue on this basis with both the United States and all those colleagues willing to help find coordinated solutions.
Overall, the circus continues, and the most striking part is that it seems Trump actually believes this. Meanwhile, the Hungarian foreign minister stated that sanctions against Russia shouldn't be imposed as they negatively affect Europe the most.
Hungary has a clear position on sanctions and their impact. We've already implemented 18 sanction packages, and they have harmed Europe and the European economy far more than Belarus or Russia. This is obvious. Even among my fellow ministers in Europe, there is a belief that sanctions are not working as intended. Let's be honest. Our position is simple. If you do something 18 times in a row and it doesn't work, maybe it's time to stop. But European colleagues are convinced that if we do the same thing a 19th time, somehow it will work. But that's like cutting off your own leg. I consider the sanctions policy a complete failure. If you look at the numbers, you'll see how much damage it has caused the European economy.
Overall, he's partially right. It would have been better to provide 19 Lend-Lease packages to Ukraine and achieve a military defeat of Russia. Friends, if you agree, share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.